5 weeks into Donald Trump's presidency, and established norms in war and in trade have been completely upended, with the president deciding to suspend military aid to Ukraine, a move praised by Russia, and to impose huge tariffs on the US's main trading partners, Canada, Mexico and China. The pausing of aid followed last week's unprecedented clash in the White House between Presidents Trump and Zelensky. Today, Mr. Zelensky described the angry exchange as regrettable and said it is time to make things right, indicating he was now ready to work with the US on a peace deal. But there was fury from another quarter from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada, whose country now faces US tariffs, that is, taxes on their exports of 25%. It led to the latest outbreak of starkly undiplomatic language, with Mr. Trudeau describing Mr. Trump's decision as a very dumb thing to do. With the latest, here's Sarah Smith in Washington.
You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
The explosive spat inside the White House last week is now reverberating around the world.
If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Very hard to do business, he means, if President Zelensky will not do exactly what Donald Trump tells him to. So he yanked away American military support to force Mr. Zelensky to agree to America's terms, no matter how favourable they may seem towards Russia. The European leaders who have rallied around Ukraine don't want to get on the wrong side of Donald Trump. They appear to have persuaded Mr. Zelensky to offer him an olive branch. In a statement on X, he promised to work for a limited truce under what he called President Trump's strong leadership. We really do value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence, he said. And that the row in the White House was regrettable, it's now time to make things right. On that critical minerals economic deal that Donald Trump is so eager to agree, Ukraine is now ready to sign it at any time, according to President Zelensky.
Offer some words of appreciation.
Vice President J.D. Vance has long believed that American support for Ukraine is a waste of money. Today he said it's not the public posturing that matters, but what happens behind the scenes.
The public stuff doesn't matter nearly as much as what are the Ukrainians doing to meaningfully engage on what a peaceful settlement would look like. We need the Ukrainians privately to come to us and say, this is what we need, this is what we want, this is how we're going to participate in the process to end this conflict. That is the most important thing, and that lack of private engagement is what is most concerning to us.
Russian drones attacked towns in northeastern Ukraine overnight. Without American military support, Ukraine will find it harder to fight back. A pause in US aid does not mean a pause in the fighting. Ukraine can keep going, albeit with a depleted arsenal, and Russia will be eager to make the most of this battlefield advantage.
War places a heavy burden on our nation's extraordinary military families.
Later tonight, Donald Trump returns to Congress to deliver a speech he says is going to be big. And he will want to make a big announcement on Ukraine. Reshaping global conflicts to suit his schedule is now part of Donald Trump's playbook, as he's the one making the rules.
Well, more from Sarah at the White House now. Sarah, as you said, President Trump is due to deliver that major speech to Congress in a few hours. Where might this go?
Yeah, well, we haven't yet had any direct response from him to President Zelensky saying that he's ready to work towards a peace deal and that he will sign that minerals deal any time. So we wonder, could that time be just before Donald Trump's big congressional speech tonight? He would love to announce that he had signed a deal and treat it as vindication of his aggressive, even bullying approach to international diplomacy. And we will have full coverage of Donald Trump's speech to Congress through the night with BBC News here on BBC One.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Let's go now to James Waterhouse, who's in Kyiv for us. And James, given President Zelensky's words today in this anticipation of a deal, is Ukraine bowing to the inevitable?
I think so, Rita. We are seeing Ukraine bend to Donald Trump's vision as for how this war should end. It is a position driven by Ukraine's reliance on America. This is a country that at the moment is manufacturing around a third of the weapons it needs to fight against Russia. It hopes that'll go up to 50% by the end of the year, but it's the quality and quantity of what America provides that it wants so badly. The pausing of this military aid will affect Ukraine's ability to protect the skies in cities like Kyiv, as well as to strike Russian targets deep behind enemy lines. Now, the signing of this mineral deal just might bring America back to Ukraine's aid in a military sense in the future. But it also might not. The presence of American companies in Ukraine didn't exactly stop the full-scale invasion. But the most concerning thing for Ukraine, I think, is what this means for Russia. Of all the compromises Ukraine is being asked to make, Ukraine's ability to defend itself is being hampered, and there is nothing new being announced by the White House that is slowing Russia's continued advances across a vast front line.
OK, thank you. James Waterhouse reporting there from Kyiv. Well, as we heard, US tariffs on imports from its top 3 trading partners, Canada, Mexico and China, have come into force. Canada and China have already hit back with tit-for-tat levies. Faisal Islam is here to tell us more. Faisal.
Thanks, Rita. These are huge new tariffs aimed at the US biggest trade partners, Canada and Mexico. These are countries with whom the US shares a free trade area. This action, 25% on almost all imports from both countries, effectively blows up that Mexico-Canada-America agreement negotiated by Donald Trump himself. China was hit today too with a 20% tariff on its exports to the US, and the official reason, the legal basis, is the claim that all 3 countries are responsible for the deadly fentanyl drug crisis in the US. But President Trump keeps on mentioning other reasons, unfair trade or wanting to make Canada the 51st state of the US. Both China and Canada already hit back with equivalent tariffs. Mexico will do so on Sunday.
Today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Now, the US president shot back that he would hit back in turn against Canada, again refusing to refer to his neighbours as having a prime minister. He said, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the US, our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. But President Trump may have been a little more worried by a considerable fall in US stock markets over the last couple of days, as traders finally had to take the president's trade threats, their impact on the economy and higher inflation, very seriously. The president tends to notice this sort of hit. And this is just the start. The whole world could be hit with tariffs on steel and aluminium, on cars, on agriculture, and on countries that have VAT, all of which could come into force over the next month. Now, the economic effect of this is well known. Tariffs hit growth and raise prices for consumers. Here's a rather clear example from Donald Trump's first term. In 2018, he levied America-first tariffs on washing machine imports of 20 to 50%. By summer 2022, US washing machine prices were 42% higher, even dragging up the price of tumble dryers too. Now, 1,800 jobs were created in US factories, but at an astronomical and enduring cost of $815,000 in higher consumer costs per new job. How does this affect us? Well, because the UK and US trade is pretty balanced, we might avoid these US tariffs as part of a friendly deal. Some economists believe Chinese manufactured goods or Canadian energy may be diverted from the US to the UK, effectively lowering prices here. But as the Chancellor told me today, we will not escape the overall impact, even if the PM can do a deal with Donald Trump.
Even if tariffs aren't applied to the UK, we will be affected by slowing global trade, by a slower GDP growth and by higher inflation than otherwise would be the case. And we don't want to see tariffs. And I will continue to make the case with all my international counterparts for free and open trade.
So this is a serious G7 tit-for-tat trade war that has started in earnest, that could hit Europe in the coming days and so become bigger in scope than the infamous US tariffs of a century ago. So the impact will be difficult to escape even here. Trade wars are hard to win and easy for everyone to lose. Rita.
Faisal, thank you very much.